By the way, we are going to have some fun with this, and it's time to talk some Kentucky basketball. But we got to set the stage here in the morning of how well things appear to be going with Big Blue Nation. Let's take a look at that press conference here with Mark Pope.
Guys, we see these introductory press conferences all the time now. Nobody in the world has ever seen anything like this. But I'm about to break tradition. Amen. I'm about to break tradition. At every one of these press conferences, the coach comes up and he stands there with the AD, and they take a picture with a jersey that they just made that ends up in a closet somewhere. We're not doing that here.
How about that? The big rally, 22,000 people show up to try to convince themselves that Mark Pope is the right hire for Kentucky. So let's have at it round two. Mark, is this the right move for Kentucky? Are they back on track?
Well, look, I mean, there are people who get, their sixth choice for senior prom and end up marrying them. I'm just probably not going to be one of them. So that is Kentucky right now, as they went through several other options and finally landed on Mark Pope. And, quote, got the guy they wanted. It was a job that nobody wanted. Otherwise, there would be a different coach there and there would be a different celebration. And maybe 22,000 people would have showed up regardless of who got that job. But, look, if you want to win the press conference, they did it, right? If you want to win the moment and make yourself feel good about, the actual hire, they absolutely did that. I think they were smart to play it up the way that they did. But at the end of the day, when they start bouncing balls in October, if you don't start winning games and win them quick at Kentucky, guess what? Everyone's going to laugh at the whole press conference. Everyone's going to laugh at the 96 team getting off the bus, and everyone's going to laugh at Kentucky. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but ultimately what we talked about with this job and what you and I agreed with that Ben, sort of disagreed with the idea that it's not a top job anymore because the expectations aren't going to match what the reality is. And right now, Kentucky doesn't match reality of the expectations because guess what? They haven't been a very consistent basketball team, particularly on the defensive end. Now, will Mark Pope fix that? BYU was 60th in the country in defensive efficiency last year. That's a big upgrade from where Kentucky was. But, can they do it? And can they do it in the SEC is a different conversation.
I mean, running the Mark Pope system with NBA level athletes, I think, is something I'm pretty interested in watching. They led all of college basketball in 3-pointers attempted and made last season, and getting some guys in who can do that at a higher level, I think, is probably going to lead to winning basketball. One of those guys is going to be Colin Chandler, the former number 33 overall recruit in the 2022 class, has transferred from BYU and is headed to play for Mark Pope at Kentucky. I mean, if this is the direction, Zeno, that the program is going in and they get more top 50 recruits, I think the ceiling is pretty high for this group of guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the danger. And anybody who bet the NCAA tournament realizes this. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. And guess what? It's really hard to win a national championship, because that's the standard at Kentucky, when all you do well is shoot threes. Because guess what? Can't really do it for 6 games straight in March. And when you have that bad game and you play a high-level team that has, that is of equal competition, you're going to get beat. And that's the real issue here. It's not about whether they can win 25 games during the regular season. Sure, they can. They can do that. It's about whether you can win 6 games in March, because I'll reiterate, the standard at Kentucky and the expectation is that you are in the Final Four competing for a national championship. Getting to the Sweet 16 still gets you fired. And that's just the reality of the situation. So it's a dangerous sort of system to bring, because I haven't seen a team that wins a lot with this live by the 3, die by the 3 mentality. You've proven that you've got to be like UConn. If you want to dominate, you've got to be good on both ends of the floor. You've got to be good on the perimeter. You've got to be good inside. You've got to do a little bit of everything really well if you'd like to get a chance at a national championship. And I just don't know that Mark Pope's system brings that.
No, and you're taking a look too, like Mark Pope, again, he's going to be loved in Kentucky to start because he was a Kentucky player. But Kenny Payne also went to Louisville, and they said, okay, after 2 years, it was an absolute disaster. Are we saying it's going to be a disaster? No. Take a look at Mark Pope's coaching resume. Georgia assistant, Wake Forest assistant, BYU assistant, then gets the head coaching job at Utah Valley before becoming the BYU head coach. He is a good head coach, but let's also be honest with ourselves. As Mark pointed out, when you're taking a look at top 3 jobs, top 5 jobs, top 10 jobs, top 10 jobs don't mean it's the support that you get from the fan base because they're rabid supporters and they'll sell out the arena. They'll sell out the arena for anybody who's going to be their coach. A top job lets you know of this. Once Kentucky becomes available, you're starting to hear names like, oh no, Mike Krzyzewski wants to come out of retirement and take Kentucky because of how good that is. Jay Wright wants to come out of the TV booth and possibly coach Kentucky because of how good that is. In order to be a top job, you have to get the top applicants who all want that job, and it just was not the case here. Now, Mark, let's take this another step for Kentucky basketball, because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to take Coach Cal's kids here and see if I can mend them into a championship. Well, Coach Cal's kids aren't there anymore. You lost an amazing recruiting class that went up in smoke. You lost the best players, whether through graduation or, let's just say, to the NBA draft or the transfer portal. This is a blank slate. But this isn't winning at BYU. This is winning at Kentucky. Is the talent level going to be there next year for Kentucky to make a tournament run? And when I say tournament run, making it into the tournament.
It remains to be seen. I mean, again, if he can find shooters, if Mark Pope can find shooters and guys that can fill up the bucket, yeah, they'll have a shot. I mean, look, we know what the SEC is, right? As far as the conference is concerned, it's going to be a 6 or 7 bid league, all things considered, unless something goes wildly wrong. So it would take a lot for Kentucky to not make the tournament. You're talking about a team that's hovering around 500 all year long. I don't know if they'll be that bad, but, the idea that they could only be a 20, 21 win team and be 21-11 kind of deal and be on the bubble, that may be more of the issue. I don't think they'll be hovering around 500. They should be better than that. But like you said, DRS, I mean, the athletes have gone, and Mark Pope has to do an incredibly quick turnaround here on putting some guys on the floor that want to play and can play. And it looks like they're all going to come from mid-majors, right? They're all going to come from lower conferences and lower teams that nobody's really heard of, with an opportunity to go play at Kentucky and hopefully put this team, into the NCAA tournament again.